I'm Hiba Elias.
And I'm Chevon Drew.
And welcome to Momentum, a Race Forward podcast, where we explore how racial justice work
is showing up everywhere around us.
Welcome back to another episode of Momentum, y'all. Season 2, episode 6. Welcome. Hi, Chevon.
Hi, what month is it?
It's February. It's February. It's my birthday month.
Happy birthday, Hiba.
Aquarius season is in full effect, y'all.
That's so cute. I don't know what it means, but it's awesome, I think.
We can have an offline discussion about all the horoscopes in your sign, Chevon.
Did you celebrate the new year like a Muslim way to celebrate the new year in the West? Or like, what is it for you? What does New Year's mean to you?
So Islamically, our New Year's is on a different type of time. Like we celebrate on a different month every year. My family always has a tradition of bringing in the New Year together. I've had the privilege of going back to Sudan and celebrating New Year's in Sudan. So I haven't really been able to celebrate it with my parents directly, like my direct family. So this year was the first year in the last 5 years that we actually brought it in together. So it was really chill. I prayed it in, sending all blessings and feel good vibes to everybody worldwide because we are undergoing a lot. It wasn't your normal New Year's for me. How was yours?
I was kind of like inside mostly, if I'm being honest. But I'm here. And like you said, 2020 was a really challenging year. And a lot of people are not here with us in body in 2021. So I came in thankful. I came in meditative. Oh, wait, that may be an exaggeration. I came in a thoughtful way. I wasn't literally meditating. I came in more so introspective and you know what I mean? Like kind of journaling. I don't even think I had champagne.
It was a different New Year. It was definitely, I feel like everyone that I've checked in with, they were like, yeah, but this is, it wasn't it for us. Like we were really calm. So I'm glad that you brought it in a still space. You grounded yourself. I think we needed it coming into 2021 because we didn't know what we were walking into. And honestly, I still don't know what to expect. We're in February. I feel like we're just starting the new year. Like, because January was so much. There was so many things happening on in January. I'm just like, you know what? We're just going to add this on to 2020.
That's how
we're
going
to start the new year in February. Like, this is it. We're starting the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. When you listen to this.
Yes. This
is our New Year wish to you all. Happy New Year's. But no, it was just so much happening.
We made it here, but like some folks didn't. And some folks are still fighting various things. There's people who's trying to figure out how they're going to pay their mortgage. There's people who are trying to recover from COVID, like trying to figure out funerals remote, all these different things going on. So
yeah, I really just wanted to start off this episode with just sending out love to everyone who has undergone or experienced COVID, whether they've felt the symptoms, experienced COVID themselves, whether they've had to care for someone. I know I have a few close friends and even some colleagues who have experienced COVID, and it's a scary thing to hear about. But when you hear that someone close to you has experienced it, it's an even different experience, a more different experience. This is not something that's easy. I feel like we're still in a pandemic. Just a reminder, continue treating each other with grace and love and patience. You never know what the next man is going through, the next woman is going through, the next person is going through. So
thank you. That was beautiful. What else? Oh, Georgia. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do. Like, I'm
You're
still
smiling.
in awe. Yes, I'm still in awe. The Democrats won both Georgia Senate seats and with them the U.S. Senate majority. So the final votes were counted in early January, serving the former president in a stunning defeat in his turbulent final days. This win dramatically improved the fate of President Joe Biden's progressive agenda. Ossoff and Warnock represented the diversity of their Democratic Party's evolving alliance. They defeated Republicans Perdue and Loeffler 2 months after Biden became the first Democratic presidential candidate to carry the state since 1992. Warnock, who served as the pastor for the same Atlanta church where civil rights leader Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. preached, became the first African American from Georgia elected to the Senate, a major accomplishment. And Ossoff became the state's first Jewish Senate at 33 years old. He's now noted the youngest member in the Senate. This is something to definitely celebrate. I know all our Georgians, friends down south, have been celebrating this big win. These are twin victories, represented a shift in the state's politics and cemented the transformation of Georgia, which was once a solid Republican state, Chevon. So this is something that has happened in the past month, you know, alongside a whole bunch of other things that have been taking place. But this is one of the wins that we definitely want to highlight.
Yeah, they've gotten appointed to various committee assignments in the Senate now. So folks can look that up and see, you know, Senate Judiciary, the Banking Committee, the Homeland Security Committee, all of those things, Agriculture Committee. Some of those are fairly powerful committees to be a part of. So y'all can, you know, look that up and check that out. And also check raceforward.org/media to see episode 5. Like, you can listen to episode 5 of our podcast where we were talking to Leisha Clarendon, Crystal Echohawk, and Christina Jimenez. And, you know, Leisha was one of the folks involved with campaigning around the Warnock win with the WNBA. So it might be of interest to folks, the politically minded among you, to listen to that one.
So after this event, I'll let you take this over, Chevon. I'll let you hold the mic on this one, because the frustration in me will not let me.
I get it. Well, thanks for taking us through some of the wins. I mean, some of the tougher parts to see happen involve the insurrection at the Capitol. To see that level of hatred and violence on display, it was triggering for a lot of people. There are people who have been through that before. There are people in different cities and states where, you know, their communities have experienced white nationalist violence directly in their lifetime. And for those who haven't, it's still created this kind of nightmarish scenario where if that's happening there, you know, why couldn't that happen down the block from you, right? We saw the lead up to this type of violence over the past couple of years. We've seen, you know, Charlottesville, and we've had Color Lines even. They had Spencer Sunshine reporting early on that this type of violence was bubbling up and getting more and more organized again. So it was really hard to watch that. And that is why for so many people, January felt like 2020 Part 2 until we made it out of January. I guess what I would say, Hiba, is my understanding of the insurrection is that it's in response to the historic election that you're talking about, right? So Warnock, Ossoff, Black and Jewish people working together for progressive values and legislation and ideals is not new. There are people that died for that, you know what I mean, trying to work together for that in the past. So I think while that may not be new, we know it's historic, and especially in Georgia. And then also we know there was a multiracial coalition that rose up in this election and decided that they wanted to activate more and more people to vote, more and more people of color across the country to get involved in voting. And from what I understand and when I'm reading, this to me looks like the Reconstruction type of backlash. And I remember that, you know, looking up and trying to see Congress, the Senate, largely composed of white people, but Congress has kind of diversified. I think they've diversified faster than the Senate. There's still a long way to go, but the Senate has been much slower. And there are people who want it to stay super white. There are people who want it to stay super white and male in the Senate. There are people that don't want that power to be in the hands of folks that they view as progressive or a person of color. And so, you know, I want folks to look up Reconstruction backlash. It's a topic that our 2020 Facing Race conference keynote, Reverend Dr. William Barber II, has spoken on, about this cycle of if Black folks particularly, and then other folks of color as well, are starting to gain some type of footing, economic footing, political footing, that there is a white nationalist backlash each time that happens. I think it's important to look that up. We can also include in the show notes a link to EJI, the Equal Justice Initiative's report that documents Reconstruction violence. I think it's important for folks to know the history so that they can see the cycle that is happening and have an understanding so that they can process why, after this historic multiracial participation in this election, that there is this violent, almost nonsensical when you listen to the interviews of people who participated, why that backlash has occurred. I hope that folks who were really terrified by this have been able to kind of like try to find some meditative time or some support from, the people around you that function as that type of a support network, because I'm sure it was traumatizing for a lot of people in many different ways.
I think you covered it all, Chevon. There's nothing for me to add aside from the fact that if you were not infuriated by the acts that took place on Capitol Hill early in the month of January, I do highly advise you to educate yourself and get grounded with the knowledge that you receive from other people. I'm just going to leave it there because the things that I want to say, I don't think Race Forward will be able, they won't be happy with my responses. So we'll leave it there. Thank you, Chevon, for covering that. I was asked by our producer, Hendel, to go into my feels, y'all. And y'all know I'm a feels person. So I was just really, really upset, to be honest, Chevon, at the response in real time while the attacks were happening. It's just upsetting to see the response that Black Lives Movement leaders and activists, when they are on the grounds and protesting, most of the time or some of the time silently in a peaceful manner, the response that they get from officials and the treatment that they receive, the world got to see the difference between the type of treatment white activists, I would like to say terrorists, white terrorists received versus the Black Lives Movement's activists. And I think that alone was enough to have everyone in an uproar and really feel discouraged in wanting to even be a citizen of this country, right? For me, I know I took a pause and I was just like, why am I even here? I was left speechless, literally speechless. And it defined the white supremacy in this country. And I think everyone got a clear visual. If you had a blurred visual before, it was definitely cleared for you in early January during this attack. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah. I definitely saw that there were lots of police there, not just the ones that people suspect may have been involved in terms of Capitol Police being involved with letting people in or showing people where to go are some of the accusations I saw. But there were actually police on the ground involved in it that had flown there. At least 28 off-duty law enforcement officers from around the country are known to have attended. That was reported by BuzzFeed. But there also was Aaron Mostofsky, son of Judge Shlomo Mostofsky from Brooklyn. So like you have the son of a Supreme Court judge. That was the person in like the animal pelt, not with the horns on the head, but there was someone else with an animal pelt, that there were a lot of photographs of. So they arrested him in Brooklyn. But yeah, so when people talk about interpersonal racism versus systemic racism, I feel like this is a good example, Hiba, to go on what you said about you're looking at here on a grand scale, what it looks like when all of it collides, frankly. You're looking at the sons of judges, you're looking at law enforcement officers, teachers, you know what I mean, out there. And then when they go back and blend in interpersonally, like what part do they have in the system? Are they teaching your kids, like what are they enforcing law against you in your community when they go home? What is it? When they walked out of there and people helped them down the steps to get home before going to look for them again to press charges days later. Like it is something that raises ire like you've never felt before. But I guess I did want to make sure people do look up Reconstruction backlash because it is a cycle and it is not new. And these types of folks have burned down Black communities before when they're doing very well and they get jealous of that community getting a foothold on the so-called American dream and so forth. So I hear you. I'm glad our producer got you to share some of your feels. I guess we can close it out with this quote from Rashad Robinson, our friend over at Color of Change. Say it with me. As long as white nationalists pervade law enforcement, we can't trust the police to protect us from white nationalist violence like last week's insurrection. That was something he said on January 12th. That sticks out in my mind. So thank you, Hiba, for sharing your thoughts. I know it's highly upsetting, but I really appreciated hearing from you on it.
We are in a new year, Chevon, with a new administration. Tell us about what's been happening so far from our president, Joe Biden, and touch base on what's happening at Race Forward and what we predicted.
Yes, Joseph Robinette Biden has signed a flurry of executive orders. And I don't know if he signs the middle name, but the middle name to me is kind of, it's kind of fly. It's so unique, And then I guess What we could share with you is that some of those executive orders, Race Forward commended Biden on several of them, several of the actions that he took, including revoking the Trump executive order attempting to halt anti-racism trainings, workshops, and discussions at the federal level. So Race Forward really counts that as a big win because, as many of our supporters out there know, our organization voiced strong opposition to Trump's executive order. We ran a hashtag campaign, we ran a banned words campaign from various platforms where we were able to get other people on board to advocate for the rescinding of that order. And we're really excited about that. Our latest release also reiterates Race Forward's call for Biden to establish a White House Office of Racial Equity and Inclusion. So look out for us to continue pushing him as an organization on that area. And check out raceforward.org/press/releases if you want more info on, where we're going with it and what the organizational view is on the Office of Racial Equity that we want. Fatima Goss Graves, who has served in numerous roles at the National Women's Law Center for more than a decade, has spent her career fighting to advance opportunities for women and girls. She has a distinguished track record working across a broad set of issues central to women's lives, including income security, health and reproductive rights, education access, and workplace fairness. Ms. Goss Graves is among the co-founders of the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. Prior to becoming president, Ms. Goss Graves served as the center's senior vice president for program, where she led the organization's broad program agenda to advance progress and eliminate barriers in employment, education, health, and reproductive rights, and lift women and families out of poverty. Prior to that, as the center's VP for Education and Employment, she led the center's anti-discrimination initiatives, including work to promote equal pay, combat harassment and sexual assault at work and at school, as well as advancing equal access to education programs with a particular focus on outcomes for women and girls of color.
That was actually a condensed version of Fatima's bio. I want you all to welcome Fatima Goss Graves, y'all.
Hi. Good to be with you guys.
Welcome. I'm just going to jump right into it. I always like to start off our conversations with some questions so our audience could get to know the guest on a deeper level. So I would love for you to tell us about your childhood and your upbringing, and then shift us into, did you always envision yourself within the gender justice sector of work?
Yeah, well, again, I'm really glad to be with you guys. I actually have been thinking a lot about my childhood recently since it's, Black History, Black Joy, Black Futures Month. I grew up in a household that really just loved on and celebrated Black people always. And so Black History Month in my house was like a thing. It's a really big thing. And my mom was basically the developer of Black history curriculum for every school I ever went to. So if you could picture this, so I've been thinking about, how do I do that with my own kids? What does this look like for me? But I grew up mostly in California in the Bay Area, and I have two sisters. I'm in the middle. I moved around, though, a fair amount. And I think if you meet folks who move around a lot when they're young, there's some common qualities that I have found kinship with those folks. You can sort of adapt to a lot of situations. You meet people easy. But I don't know that I, as a young child, would have understood what gender justice was. I wouldn't have had that language. I didn't really have the language of feminism, and certainly Black feminism as a child. But I actually knew that I believed that I could build a better world for people in this country. I believe deeply in things like equality and fairness. And I just believed and loved on Black people, always. And so I was much older when I realized that there were even jobs like the one that I have, that there were people who worked to change the laws as their job, or who did a mix of advocacy and litigation, or whose whole jobs was sort of dreaming up and thinking about how to develop different futures for women in this country. I didn't even know that those were jobs that existed. Although I wouldn't say I was like a young kid having that dream. The dream of justice and my understanding of the law being a driver for change, I did have a real clarity around. And that is in part because from the time before I can remember, I understood that one of my family's most powerful stories was being plaintiffs in cases to desegregate public schools. And that was like a huge source of pride for my family, passed down. My dad, he and his siblings were one of the plaintiffs, they talked about what it was like and what that meant for them. And so that's how I understood the law and the notions about the law. And it's kind of why I wanted to be a lawyer in the first place, really.
But you kind of knew that there was work to be done, even if you couldn't put your finger on what the official word for that work is. And I just wonder if there's anything you can share really briefly on, as a girl coming up, was there anything you experienced at home or outside of the home that helped you to crystallize that, like, hey, I, as a girl, I need to see things be different for girls?
I mean, if my sisters were on this podcast with me, they would be mocking me because I was like an odd child in that I didn't understand that I was actually a child. So I believed that I should be in spaces where no one else believed I should be. I believed that I should be allowed to have opinions about things that people are like, why are you speaking up here? And when you're a kid like that, you rub a lot of adults the wrong way. Like adults, the grown-ups in these spaces are not always happy to deal with kids like that. And so as a young kid, I was often told that I was sort of out of line as I was asking questions and developing thoughts. It was the only way I got in trouble at school. I was a kid that got great grades, but the getting in trouble was me not understanding my place. And so for me, it is one of the many things that drives the work I do today, because I just believe young people are trying to tell us important things if we listen. And that part of our job is creating those containers for them. And I also worry that we try to squelch their spirits. And I feel like I was so lucky to have parents who sort of supported me in my journey and allowed me to be me, and who's definitely like showed out if other people were trying to squelch my spirit.
I'm so glad for that honest answer. I asked you because I was that child too. And you get backlash and it's tough. And it's actually tough to hold on to that and still be that person when you're an adult. If you're, you know what I mean? If people are literally trying to like get it out of you. And
discourage you from even being
who you are,
holding that spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's in you. It's in you. So it's hard to shake it out or shake it off. I want to shift gears and talk to you about your history at the organization. Your title, I'm going to repeat it for everyone. You are the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center. I want to hear about your role in the organization so folks can know what a boss you are every day, all day, even on weekends.
So I've been at the National Women's Law Center for a really long time. I started in 2005 as an attorney. I was hired actually to work on education access and to do some work on anti-poverty programs. My last day at my last job was the day Justice O'Connor announced she was leaving the Supreme Court. And so I actually spent my first couple of years working on the courts and working on nominations. And the thing about doing that is if you're working on things like nominations, judicial nominations, you're working on every legal issue imaginable because the courts consider and affect so much of our lives. And so that was my introduction to the work of the National Women's Law Center. And I've been there long time in a lot of different roles. Pretty much at every part of the organization, I've had a chance to lead. And then about 3 years ago, a little more than that now, our co-founders and co-presidents stepped down together after 45 years of leadership. And I got the job, and it was at a really wild time. It was the first year of the Trump administration. It was a few months before Me Too went viral. It was a time where we were both trying to dream up creative strategies to both hold the line, but also launch people forward. It was a few months after the Women's March. So there was tremendous energy, but also what was coming was sort of an unending assault on all of us. And figuring out how to keep our organization going and thriving and our people well through these last 4 years has been tough. But I would not have wanted to be anywhere else, like to be in a community of people rowing in the same direction, trying to do what we can in support of justice has been a real honor to do this work. And now we are in a new phase. We have this super fragile democracy, but we're still here. We have a new administration and a new Congress and new opportunity to actually help people in this country. And none of it is easy. And so my day to day just varies, right? Like there are some days where I'm spending a lot of time engaging with the Hill or with the new administration as it's forming. There are some days where I'm just deep in the weeds with our partners, because if you do this work, you never do anything alone. You are always in deep partnership. There's some days where I'm deeply internal and working on the organization and trying to make it sound for the future. And there are other days where I'm raising dollars or talking to the media so no 2 days are actually ever alike, except they're all pretty busy. The one thing I have yet to figure out how to do is to carve out like lots of free open space. I have dreams, I'll try to do that. I'll say, oh my goodness, I have nothing on my calendar on Friday. And then I'll look at my calendar again and I'll be like, I have 30 minutes between 12 and 12:30 to think.
Yeah, that's real. So following you down that avenue, let's talk about some of the tough stuff. Is there something that stands out to you that's like one of the hardest but greatest achievements that you have under your belt, so to speak, as the president of the National Women's Law Center?
As hard as these last few years were, we actually had really important things happen. Launching the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund with lawyers and folks in entertainment, it was a tremendous effort. And the thing that people don't know is that we're able to get it going and stand it up in like a month. And if you could imagine the many, many logistical hurdles that went into something like that, it was a lot. And so I'm really proud that my team rallied around it because they understood the possibility and gave each other like some grace as we were flying and building this plane at the same time. And when I look back and think about the people we have been able to serve over the last 3 years and our ability to shape the public narrative, it is huge. And I'm really proud of it. And we had disappointing days too, right? There were days where we had, after years of mobilizing and slowing down some of the Trump administration rules, when those rules finally dropped in this last year, that was hard to take for my team. Like we had held the line, mobilized, made a extraordinarily compelling case, used our legal strategies, filed cases. And then when they finally did it, it was hard because, we were right. And we still are right, I will say. And it is why I have a pretty robust agenda of things that I think it's essential for this next administration to do quickly.
Can you tell us about, the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund? Were you a part of that when the Time's Up CEO resigned over sexual assault allegations against her son? And did it affect your work trajectory at all? Or is there anything you would share about that?
Well, so Time's Up is a separate organization that's now run by Tina Chen. and they are the closest of partners. And Tina, along with Robbie Kaplan and Hillary Rosen, are also co-founders of the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. And so they continue to be good thought partners. But the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund, the National Women's Law Center runs and operates separately.
100%. I think we're clear on that. I just also want to share with the audience that you are the co-founder. I want to make sure they're clear on your title.
Co-founder.
Co-founder of the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. So I think that's a good context to give before answering the question.
And it's good to not to have the audience understand that they're two separate organizations.
Yeah. And Time's Up is doing really tremendous work in the field. It's always unfortunate to lose a leader in this space, especially when the organization was so young. I think it's now been almost 2 years since that happened. And really seeing the work that Time's Up has been able to do in this space in that period has been important. And for me, it's sort of a good reminder that for our organizations are never about a single person. That's true for me. That's really true for everyone. They can't be. They have to for sure be about what it is we're trying to achieve in the world. So that was a good reminder then, but it's also a good thing for us to think about in this next phase, because there's lots of transitions that are happening in the field right now with people moving into new roles, long-time retirements. And the organization has to be about what it's planning to do in the world and who it is serving. What is its purpose?
I love that. I think people say that we shouldn't focus only on charismatic leadership. We can appreciate that, but we should focus on our collective efforts toward the broader vision.
Speaking of goals, I wanted to shift back to your position at the Women's Law Center. I know when it was created, its vision was to advance legal rights and protections for women through the courts. I know that the 50th anniversary has recently passed. Oh, it's next year. Oh, so my math is off. How has the organization expanded its initial vision since it started? And give us some insight on what do you guys have planned for the 50th anniversary? Anything special that folks should be tuning into?
So the first is, I can't believe that we will be 50 years old next year. And I actually think it will be a really important time to tell not just the story of our work, but the story of our movement. One of the things about being founded in 1972, so much of our history is a history of the legal and policy changes for women in this country. Important things like what it looked like for Title IX to be implemented, what it looked like to pass the Pregnancy Discrimination Act and have workers be protected for the first time, the Family Medical Leave Act, what it looked like to have legal protections achieved over these years. And so I think that will be part of the story we'll tell. And stay tuned for how we'll celebrate. But I'm just saying that I'm hopeful that gathering in person aligns with celebrating that there will be people that we'll be able to see in the world. But I will also say that our work at the Law Center, in some ways, we've always stayed to a core of thinking about the law in all of its forms. We've always had both litigators, but policy advocates. But I think and this has been a really important thing for me, have on purpose expanded our ability to run effective campaigns and better communicate to people about what is at stake and why and how to fight with us. And so that work is storytelling work, it's organizing work, it's campaign work that does not happen inside the halls of Congress or a courtroom. It's happening in other ways. It's happening in digital spaces, it's happening in art spaces, it's happening in community. And I just think the work we do, if we are doing our work in a corner somewhere and no one knows about it or feels it or understands the shifts that are happening, we won't be able to hold these wins for very long.
I was just over here nodding yes to all the things. Can you tell us, are there specific wins or types of work like that's related to racial justice, specific actions or campaigns that you would want to mention that the National Women's Law Center led?
Well, one of the things that I'm really proud of we have been able to hone over time is data and narrative work that on purpose puts women of color at the center. And so,
sorry, we be snapping.
We're both snapping.
But people don't always know that it is us. If you are able to know and understand what wages and wealth look like for Black women, that might have been because of work we've done. If you are able to sort of name, and I'll sometimes be places where people will be like, you have to understand the unemployment rate right now for Black women is 9%. And I'll think that's because we're out there. Recognize that shift in centering, it doesn't happen by accident. It actually takes a pairing of research, storytelling, and media work that is making a difference. So that's one sort of anchor level work that I'm really proud that we do. But some of the work that, if you ask my staff, I bet you this is what they'd say, because I think this is one of their favorite projects. And it is a series of participatory research projects with young people where we have both researched together with them, but anchored their activism. And so here in DC, we worked with a group of Black girls who were unhappy about and ready to take on their school's rigid dress code. And the thing about these dress codes, they were making them miss class time and being penalized for what they wore, how they did their hair, all sorts of things that had nothing to do with learning, right? And everything to do with policing our bodies and the bodies of young people. So they drove so much of it. They drove the way we wrote the report with them. They went through lobbying and media training and led on the lobbying for the DC Council and for media work. And they were one of the reasons DC changed the law. And for many of them, they said, I wasn't thinking about trying to be an advocate as a job, but they discovered something in themselves. And they took the campaigns in directions that I don't think we would have necessarily thought about doing. Like there was a group of girls who were all at the same school, and the school had like this ridiculous rule about no head wraps, because schools sometimes come up with rules that make no sense. And the girls organized what they called a head wrap clapback. And
that sounds like half of Race Forward on Zoom. I mean, we show up with our head wraps on. Why would people try to hate on those? They're so good looking.
Us. Oh my God.
And the school sat down with them and changed the policy. But their activism, they understood what would galvanize their peers. And that's, they were organizers, they were advocates, they were leaders. And so being able to work and anchor their leadership has made a difference. And so we've had a series of projects like that. And I know that, and they're very local, right? You have to be, and it's not typically how we always work, right? Because we're doing a range of work at the federal level, but it's really, really become an important learning for us around how you drive policy and advocacy work in a way that connects people meaningfully to it.
Sometimes me and Chevon just sit in awe based off the responses that we get from our guests. And that was one of those moments. So,
because we're also those girls, you know what I mean? So I'm like, Fatima, can I call you up later and talk to you about narrative? That was like so cool.
100%. Fatima, can you tell us about this historically diverse federal administration and what this means to you for the future of the United States?
Yeah. So the thing that you should know is that I am someone who believes that representation matters, that it matters because it can change the conversations in the room, but it also matters because if you've never seen yourself in a role, and we are still somehow in a space where there are so many firsts in this administration. like the first Black woman to lead the Council of Economic Advisors, the first Black person, actually, in C.C. Rouse, the first Indigenous woman, the first Indigenous person to be a cabinet secretary in Congresswoman Deb Haaland. There were just so many firsts. Vanita Gupta will be the first woman of color at a position that she will be at the Department of Justice. And Kristen Clark will be the first woman to be confirmed, if I have anything to do with it, to the head, the Civil Rights Division, and the first Black woman in that role at all. And so the fact that we're in 2021 and I only named a handful of the firsts should tell you something about what is business as usual. So the Biden-Harris administration is able to say without a doubt that it is the most diverse. And still we can push them further, right? We can push them further, even though we are in a situation where the first time we will be able to say Madam VP.
Yes. Talk to me nice.
I can't wait till, to see, President Biden is going to, at some point, it's not a State of the Union, but it will be the moment where he addresses a joint session of Congress that'll probably happen at the end of this month. And it will be the first time you have two women behind doing it in the Speaker and Madam VP. These moments actually really do matter as we think about what futures are even possible. If we haven't seen it before, it is hard to imagine.
I feel like you're sharing all the thoughts that we've had on Inauguration Day. So it was a beautiful thing to see. I have a personal question. Chevon likes to ask the political questions, but I like to ask the personal questions because you're human at the end of the day and you're a Black woman in power. How do you do it all? You hold two positions. I believe you're married, you have children. How do you balance your life? And what's some words of encouragement or some words of advice that you would give to fellow Black women on their grind, trying to achieve all they can?
Yeah, I don't have it all. So that's the first thing. And I don't think anybody does, or maybe not all at the same time. But COVID has definitely tested how we were doing things. Because the truth of the matter is, the only way with a demanding job and a very supportive partner and two active children that I'm able to make it work with is with a lot of support, right? I'm like never doing it alone. I have a mom who often would help me out, come for weeks at a time. I had a long time nanny and friend who's been with our family for almost 10 years. And I had neighbors and, you have like your mom friends who you call when you're in trouble. And all of that went away in the isolation of COVID. And so when I see people in this country, like, whether you're just like going to the grocery store and you see like the look on people's eyes, we aren't meant to be this isolated. The raising of children, in my view, is a community act.
Yes.
It is not like somebody
it's not for the soul. Yep.
I mean, even people who might say they do it all on their own, if you start to dig, you're like, who's really helping? Because somebody hopefully is helping. So I'll just be really honest, this has been a really hard year to manage it all. And the only thing that I will say that has been helpful is leaning into real gratitude that we're healthy and sort of lowering the expectations. Like, everybody's here, we won.
Love it. Just trying to make it through.
I love that too. I just, in that moment, want to shout out to everyone, all the organizers and everyone who worked on mutual aid for folks like who you described, Fatima, who maybe don't have all the economic supports or don't have community around them, that like people are closing in ranks to figure out, like, is it a community fridge? Are we delivering meals to you? Like all of those things that you talked about, where it's not about one person, it's about seeing where you fit in a larger collective. And thank you for your honesty. Hiba, thank you for that question. I loved Fatima's bearing of her soul there. I think it was really relatable.
I would love if Fatima could share her socials so folks can follow you and stay abreast of everything that you're doing, everything that you're getting into.
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at Goss Graves, and I'm also on Instagram at Fatima Goss Graves. And National Women's Law Center is on those platforms too, plus Facebook. And also, we are also on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok.
I am surprised.
I was about to say, very progressive.
They don't let me go on TikTok. I've been in one video.
Why? What are they worried about if you go on there?
You know, like,
can you not get the dances? Are you not learning quick enough?
I think they're like, you're not ready for TikTok. And that's fair.
She's like, I will humbly bow out. You guys got this. I'll let you do this.
They have fun stuff there, though.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised that the law center has a TikTok. Maybe we should think about creating one for Race Forward, Chevon. Let's pitch at the next staff meeting.
Listen. You see how she's trying to add on to my job? I got two hands. I know you heard what Fatima just said. I wrote it down for you. Leaning into gratitude and lowering expectations during the pandemic.
That is our highlight.
Love you, sissy Hiba. But let's talk about that later.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for joining us today. Are there any last words that you would like to share with our audience that you want to promote from either the Women's Law Center or the Legal Defense Fund?
Listen, we are in the first 100 days. My only hustle is really trying to get real relief and change for people in this country. So this is what I will promote, is that we put out a 100 wins and 100 day challenge at the National Women's Law Center. You can find it. We are pressing forward for really fast and bold moves. Stay connected with us for sure. And this has been wonderful.
Yay!
I love it. Thank you so much, Fatima.
So I want to just, Hiba, invite you to the mic to talk a little bit about some changes that are coming up for you, your work-life situation. Talk to the people.
So I will officially be going on sabbatical. Usually folks dedicate this time to either focus on school, write any books, engage in any projects that they've been having. But I am using this time to ground myself, spend more time with family, being that most of my time is at my desk Monday through Friday and sometimes even Saturdays and Sundays. So I will be out of the office for the next 3 months, which means Chevon will be on the podcast. I know you're sad, Chevon. You don't have to tell me. I know. I feel your energy. I will miss you, but I know you got this.
You sound like Issa Rae at her old nonprofit on the show. You're like, I know you. We got y'all. It's going to be all right. Don't worry.
That's actually one of my favorite shows, and I'm sad that it's going off the air. But that's another subject for another time. But yeah, so that's the news. That's the update. You know, keep listening in. Keep supporting Chevon. I know she's going to bring a hella content and great guests on the show. So keep tuning in.
I know you're ready for your sabbatical. Whew. So, dear listeners, thank you again. Please visit Race Forward's website for all the latest updates, our statements, our press releases, our latest work. It's raceforward.org. You can also visit raceforward.org/media, and that's how you can get to the podcast, as well as other media that we have available. Visit us on social media. We're at Race Forward on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. We are not on TikTok right now, despite Hiba trying to add that to my Rolex. This is where I'm about to hang up on her. Next is please rate and subscribe. We really appreciate when you give us a thumbs up, like us, give us a review, all of those things. Rate and subscribe. Momentum, a Race Forward podcast is how you search it. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Pandora. Thanks, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. So Chevon has placed her headphones down, y'all, and I'm just stepping back in to say that I am deeply appreciative. I will be back season 3. I will miss you all, and I'm sending you so much love. Mwah.
Hey, but what you doing out here? We closed.
I'm crying.
Caught you, girl. I'm just messing with you.